Welcome, everybody. All right, we are live. Awesome. Is that time of the year? Not time of the year, time of the month again. All right, time of the month again. I have got all of the feedback, live feedback ready. I gotta change. I haven't used this font or this style in a while. I gotta update this. I've got the submissions, some beautiful, beautiful pieces to listen to. I've got some requests, and I always forget where. I've got a notebook so I can make my write my stuff down. Put that there, get that here. Come on. And now I am ready. It is time to listen to some music. I have my energy drink. I have... Hey, welcome, Ladovic, one of my students. Welcome, my friend. Awesome. It's pretty late for you to be here. I'm glad you could make it. Excellent. So, you guys know the drill. We've got some wonderful pieces here. We've got some requests on how they could be improved. We're going to listen to them together. Along the way, if you've got questions, ideas, recommendations, requests, pop them in the chat. If we've got time, I will address them. But first up, we have Ryan. Ryan, I believe, sent this actually like right after the last live stream on Instagram. Sent this piece to me ahead of time, not wanting to miss out on the chance to get feedback. Welcome, Robbie. Welcome, Sir Dum Dum. Welcome, my friends. All right, let's see here. Ryan says, all right, is requesting information on background, foreground clarity. Also, I apologize if you guys hear any kind of like loud noises. Getting a little bit of remodeling done on the basement, getting the floor fixed. So if there's a little bit of noise, I apologize for that. I've got background noise cancelers set up on OBS. I've got a couple other plugins set up, so it should help. Welcome, Ryan. No worries. No need to apologize. I'm glad you sent it early, all right? I'd rather people send stuff early so that you don't miss out than never send it all. Welcome, 23. Welcome, Shlu. We got some good people showing up. Awesome. Don't forget to like the stream. That helps a lot. And without further ado, let's dive in. All right, Ryan is asking about background and foreground clarity, overall mixing levels and sound, and any improvements on the flow of the piece. Is anything rushed or not quite developed? Additional information, Ryan used piano, violin, viola, first and second violins, bass, cello ensembles for the background. Interesting. So I'd be interested, first off, what's the difference between violin and first and second violins? Is this like a solo violin? 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and understandable if we don't meet the time requirement. So yeah, we will probably have to cut it a little early, but let's give it a listen, shall we? All right, a little longer, so we'll stop there, even though it's only like 4 seconds left. Beautiful. Ryan, well done. All right, lots of good things to say. But there's some feedback. Don't worry. There's some constructive feedback. Beautiful. This is a beautiful, beautiful soundscape. All right, beautiful sound palette, beautiful texture. Breathtaking. I mean, I was seeing the comments come in. Like, people really seem to be enjoying this. It's very beautiful. Very well done. Like, how many times can I use the word beautiful in a sentence, right? Beautiful, beautiful. All right, it's beautiful. All right. There I go again. Well done. All right, so let's get some thoughts out here. All right. So, first off, some things I really enjoyed. Beautiful use of instrumentation, especially around like 2 minutes and 29 seconds when you started using the instruments of the rest of the string orchestra to flesh out and build size. Y'all, this is huge. All right, so just in case you're new to the channel, the secret to emotions and music, it's not actually a secret. All right, for whatever reason, musicians have been really slow to pick up on this, but I am very fortunate, very blessed to have had a background in therapy. I went to school to be a therapist, not a composer. Somehow, I ended up being a composer instead. In the world of psychology, we've understood this for decades at the least. Like, it's not a mystery, all right? Music evokes emotions because it describes the same exact elements we use. Well, let me put it this way. Music evokes emotions because the same exact elements we use to describe emotions can also be used to describe music. All right, so what are these all-important elements? The first one is valence. The next one is size. The last one is energy. All right, valence refers to how positive or negative an emotion is. So how bright versus dark, right? Size is how overwhelming, we'll say how strong, that's overwhelming, an emotion is. How large, all right, in musical terms. And energy is how physically expressive an emotion is. Like, basically, how easy is it to tell by looking at someone through their body language? How much of their body language is informed by this emotion, all right? So how much movement, all right? These three terms are used to describe emotions. Sadness is dark, intimate, low energy. So music, sad music, should be dark, intimate, and low energy. All right, simple, right? Most people get hung up on this first one. For whatever reasons, musicians are obsessed with valence. They want to know how harmony, how instrumentation, how all these things can make their music feel darker or brighter, all that kind of cool stuff. All right, that's cool, that's important. That is 1/3 of it. But the two that are the most responsible for nuance, the two that are most important, the ones that cause goosebumps, all right, that cause you to get a shiver down your spine, are size and energy. All right, so around that 2 minute, 29 second marker is a beautiful example of using size in your music to build emotion. Listen as the strings build. The upper strings are going to enter. Is this the right spot? Yeah, here they come. Let's just speed up a bit. You can hear the upper strings. And then you're gonna hear the lower strings start coming. See? It gets bigger. And that's where the goosebumps come in. Because the emotion, the size, is how intense the emotion. Once you have a baseline of this is the general mood, size is how you manipulate how overwhelming that emotion is. Do this. Go back to your most favorite emotional pieces of music. This is how goosebumps are created. through manipulating size and sometimes energy. All right? On the rare occasion, a dramatic shift in valence will have an impact, but usually that emotional impact comes from size, how overwhelming versus intimate the experience feels. So that is something you do very well, whether that is deliberate or instinctive, or whatever it is. Ryan, you have got the gift, the instincts for good emotional. Manipulations feels like a bad term, but like good good emotional awareness through your size, energy, and valence, right? This is amazing. Now, if you want to learn more about this, this is something that I have never seen any other composing teach, because I don't think there are any other professional therapists turned professional composers out there. I have a class on emotions and music. There are payment plans. It comes with 3 private lessons. The price is $250. It is a 6-week course that comes with 3 private lessons. We can talk about whatever you want. And you also get enrolled in the updates of the course that I'm building, a much larger class. You automatically get enrolled in that as well. I also have a book in my bookshop where you can cover this information too. Emotions, portraying emotions with music. You can get this as well. As well, you can show support to me, the channel, help keep me creating more videos, paying my bills, while also learning this entire system. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for feedback. So that is fantastic. Fantastic use of instrumentation. Fantastic all that. Now, you asked about background and foreground clarity. This is issue number 1. There are many moments throughout this piece where the melody is a little difficult to follow. All right, where it's difficult to, like... So lots of people seem to think that a predictable melody is a bad thing. It's not. A predictable melody is an intuitive melody. It is a melody that your audience is going to get catchy. All of John Williams's melodies are intuitive. All of Hans Zimmer's melodies, all of Mozart's melodies, all of the great composers of any era that wrote catchy melodies, all of them are intuitive. They all feel natural, and that comes from a couple different things. Number 1 is structure. All right? There are a couple moments where the inherent structure, the use of patterns in your music, it's felt it was more like free form, free thought, which is fine. There is a genre of music, soundscape music, where it is much more free form. But if you want more clarity, you want to focus on using... If you want to focus on clarity, melodies need structure. All right? And maybe you had one, maybe it just wasn't readily apparent, whatever, because there's another thing that I'm going to bring up here. Structures are just patterns. All right? 3 of the most common ones are sentence structure, which goes A, A, B, C, period structure, which goes A, B, A, C, and sequencing, which just goes A, repeat until you end. All right, these are 3 of the most common. These are not cookie cutters. They are not templates. They're like grammar. All right, English and every language has grammar. There's a specific order your words are supposed to go in. All right, I believe it's like, what is it? Subject, object, verb. There's subject, verb, object, something like that. There's a specific order your words are supposed to go in. And you wouldn't accuse Shakespeare, J.K., J.R.R. Tolkien, or any great author of being a hack, of being a cookie cutter, of being a copy, like an unoriginal, because they follow those grammatical structures. It's the same with melodic structures. These aren't cookie cutters. They're just kind of grammar. These are things that we understand intuitively because you learn music the same way you learn language, by listening. So that's one thing. Ryan says, yeah, that's sort of how I wrote it. I have trouble with structure, kind of just flowed with it. That's good. That's good. But if you want this to be catchy, if you want this to be much more intuitive, like I said, I would focus on one of these. Now, I believe, let's see what, I've got videos on this. I've got shorts, actually. I've been doing a lot of shorts lately. I am going back to this video right here. Will give you some really good idea. Really? This one only has 1,000? Wow. My shorts got more views than this one. This is a good video. This is a very, very good video. I would check this one out. This one will introduce you to the idea of structure, all right? And then I have lots of shorts with, so this is a good one. Emotional music, that shows you sequencing structure. Let's see here. There's good ones. So that video I just showed you is a really good one for learning more about structure. I am burning up right now. All right, so I am going to get up real quick. I'm going to start playing the music again. I'm gonna stop playing the music again. I'm gonna turn my ceiling fan on because I am sweating really bad right now. Sorry about that. I was just sitting here, I was like, I am drenched in sweat. Why? It's like, oh, I forgot to turn on my ceiling fan. That's why, and it's hot out. Let's see here. Where is everybody? I think I lost you. Awesome. Glad it's useful. No worries, Robbie. These videos are they're live, but you can always rewatch them. So, anyway, that was reason number 1. Let's go on to clarity number 2. Clarity in music comes from 3 things. All right? Clarity in music. If you are wondering why your music is muddy, why it's chaotic, why it feels like it's missing clarity in any term of the phrase, it's because you're missing one of these 3 things. These 3 things are responsible for clarity. There is separation, there is focus, and there is balance. These 3 things are the pillars of all arranging. If you never learn anything else about arranging and just go instinctive everything, learning these 3 things is going to revolutionize your instincts. And if you want a much deeper understanding, just look up Tabletop Composer and 3 pillars. Look that up. This video right here, fantastic video. It'll break these down in quick detail, much more detail. But for now, separation is the idea that each layer in your music should stand out as a distinct layer. All right? What do I mean by that? Your chord, if you have chords and you have a melody, you should be able to tell, okay, that's the melody, that's the chords. All right? If you have a melody, counter melody, and bass line, it should be pretty easy to tell that's a melody, that's the counter melody, that's the bass line. All right? There are a couple moments in this structure, in this piece, where your melody and your counter melody and like a third layer, it's hard to tell which is which. You understand because you can hear the different instruments, but it's hard to tell which one am I supposed to, like which is which. Now you can, 3 tools for separating, or multiple tools. You can separate by pitch. You can give them different articulation styles. You can give them different timbres. You can give them different rhythms. These are your 4 most powerful tools for making ideas sound different. So the biggest one is your melody and your counter melody were both played by solo string instruments. They were both very legato. Or so they were both, solo instruments, strings, very legato, almost identical rhythms, small changes here and there, and very close in pitch. Because there wasn't a lot of differentiation, they're going to sound like very closely related ideas. That's going to be difficult to separate them. This is why, this idea of separation, this is why the different voices of a chord progression still sound like a chord progression and not, oh, that's 4 different harmonic voices. Like, okay, those are the chords. It's because they're all related to this. The more they have these in common, the more they're going to relate it. Now, once you have separation, once your idea, so even something as simple as giving your viola a slightly different rhythm, that would do like, which it is slightly different, but if you like differentiate it a little bit more, it would be much, much more helpful. But even then, once you have separation, they are clearly focused. The next one, after you have separation, the biggest one is focus. All right? There must be a clear hierarchy between your layers. Foreground, midground, and background. All right? Foreground is the layer that's most important. This is the one you want your audience to pay attention to subconsciously, is the most important. Background are all the other layers that are responsible for providing that foreground personality. So like you might have a melody as your foreground. Cool. The bass line and the harmony, those are background layers because that bass line and that harmony, it gives that melody a unique personality. A little flute run, it's a little bit of ear candy. That's cool. That contributes to the music, but it doesn't play an important role in the personality of your foreground. So that's what makes midground. It's supportive material that doesn't directly shape the personality of your foreground. All right? Now, there are three things that are going to determine which layers have the most important. So, the most layers that demand the most attention. All right, in other words, repetitive layers fall into the background. So that's another reason why at different points you lack clarity, is because your counter melody and your melody are both developing at the same time. All right, and because they are both developing, they're both moving forward, neither one has had a chance to sink in, they start competing. And it's still beautiful. There are entire genres of music based around this concept of not having a clear foreground. They're called soundscapes, all right? Or ambient music is another version. These are genres that are built around the idea that it's a wall of sound, not one clear idea. And this is a very beautiful piece, even without clear focus. But because you asked specifically about clarity, is where I'm going to bring it up. You have multiple moments. Like that piano ostinato in that background, the beautiful and repetitive. That's why it never competes with the foreground. There's never a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, the piano is fighting with the... Like, I can't focus on the melody because that piano part is so beautiful and crazy and stuff. It's cool, but it's repetitive, and so it falls into the background, which is what you want. Now, introducing the melody and introducing the counter melody without a clear intuitive structure, it's an uphill battle right off the bat. But even with this, if the two are both new, if they're both new ideas, they're both novel ideas, they're both going to demand lots of attention. All right? They're both going to demand lots of attention, and so that's going to make it difficult to kind of... They're going to fight each other out, and your clarity will suffer. All right? Again, if you want a much more in-depth, check out this video. After that, that's the most powerful by far. After that... Rhythmically active layers demand more attention than rhythmically inactive. But again, this one is much more important. This is more like, all right, if this is equal, if they're both equally repetitive, the more rhythmically active one will demand a little bit more attention. And then all things being equal, pitch, all right? Higher pitches demand more attention than lower pitches. This is why the top voice of a chord progression tends to have the most impact on the personality of the chord progression. It's because it's the highest, all right? And everything else in a chord progression is obviously equal. So the last pillar is balance. Once separation and focus are taken care of, all layers should be relatively equal in power. All right, this is where a lot of people make mistakes. They're like, oh, wait, well, the background should be softer than the foreground, right? The melody is most important, so it should be louder. Or the melody is much more important, so it should be much stronger, right? Nope, wrong. That's how you get a very out-of-balance mix. That's how you feel. It's like, wow, this feels lopsided. Because think about that. Why do you want the melody to be louder than the chords? Oh, because the melody is most important, right? Who cares? If you have separation, if your melody sticks out, and you have other strategies making sure your melody takes center stage, why are you doing that? Why are you making the melody loud? It already maintains focus. It doesn't need dynamics. It doesn't need that extra power. All right? If you want a well-balanced, well-rounded arrangement, now there are exceptions. Like, for example, mid-ground layers. Mid-ground layers, like that ear candy, tend to be the biggest. They can be the softest. They can be a little softer. But most ideas, as long as you've got that hierarchy, as long as they're all separate, they should be equal in power. Because you don't need to outbalance them for any of them. There's no reason for that. All right, make sense? Wonderful. Let's see here. 23. Thank you. I don't know if you're trolling or not, because I've definitely talked about this stuff almost every live stream, I feel like. Or maybe that's just me. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to like the stream. That does wonders for the channel. I appreciate you. Wonderful job. Ryan, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece. All right. Fantastic job. Overall mixing, I feel like the strings, the violins, and the viola soloists might be a little strong with the reverb, but it works well. It creates a very beautiful ambient feel. So that's fine. That was a nice deep dive into that stuff. Well done. All right. Awesome. As a reminder, if you want to learn more about the 3 pillars, check out this video. If you want to learn about structures, Secret to chord progressions. Is that it? Oh, I forgot I did this one. That's a short. That was a fun one. This one, the hidden structure behind every great chord progression. This is a great video introduction to structures. And then obviously, if you want more about emotions and music, check out my book. Or if you'd like some private lessons, check out my emotions and music class. This is an amazing opportunity. There are lots of people who really enjoy it. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. And again, especially since I moved, I've had about 57 students take this. The number, if you sign up, is going to look much smaller. I think it's like 8 people have signed up for it since I changed the format, because it used to be cohorts. We used to do it like as an actual class. Now it's take it at your own pace. But there are lots of good reviews. I love doing this class. I love teaching the private lessons and getting to know y'all one-on-one. Check it out. That's that information. Let's move on, shall we? Now, instead of deleting all of this, like I have in the past, I'm just going to strike through it. And I'm just going to also strike through. I'm going to change the color. There we go. That way I can go back to stuff if I would need to. Shlu, hey Tabletop Composer, the link for my submission might not work. I sent you a new link over Discord. The old link was just really quiet, and I simply made the piece a bit louder. Awesome. Let's see. I will check if it doesn't work. I think it worked when I checked. If it doesn't, I'll go check out that new link. But thank you for the heads up. Awesome. Glad it sank in 23. Wonderful. Robbie had to leave, which is unfortunate. Hopefully Robbie gets back in time, because it's time to listen to the music. The request, my specific question is about the mix. I worked really hard to get the balance of everything just right, but I always feel like there's something I'm not hearing. Some low quality sounding mud, maybe. Even when I think it sounds good, I feel like my untrained ears are just not picking up whatever it is that might make my mixes sound less professional. I also wonder if this is what is contributing to the lack of clarity in the dotted rhythms in the violin, or if I'm just programming them wrong, or what. What are your thoughts? I don't know. Let's give it a listen. Additional notes. This is my first time submitting for one of your feedback sections. Hey! Congratulations! Thank you! Thank you for what you do. I've attended some of your videos since I recently discovered you. I've gotten a lot out of the feedback you give others. Wonderful. That's the goal. Thank you. I love doing this. I love hearing you guys submit your music. This is so crucially important to share your music, because the world needs more music. It really does. You know, I went on a rant recently about how incredibly rare it is to be a composer. If you think about it, how many people across the history of the world, about how many billions of people exist now, how many of them write music, and of the people who write music, how many of them actually share it? How many of them actually put it out there to be heard? You are part of a very, very small population, and so I am very glad that you shared your music with me. So thank you. I do not take that lightly. So let's give it a listen. That was beautiful, Robbie. Ooh, is there more? Ooh. Beautiful, my friend. All right, so one thing I will say right at the bat. Silence in music. Where is it? silence in music only carries the momentum that came directly before it. That's how you have, if you wanted this to be like a false ending, that's one thing, that's good. Well done. But if you wanted this to be kind of like a build-up, like, so let me give you an example. If I wanted this to be a build-up, oops, let's do, which one have I got? Let's do strings. I got a piano pedal. So if I'm trying to build a nice pregnant pause, is the term that gets used a lot. The idea of a pause, a silence that contains a lot of energy. Does this sound like it's got a lot of energy? So, like, did that silence feel like, okay, more to come, more to come, more to come, more to come? No, it sounds like, ah, that was a good way to end it. And then, oh, something popped out. All right. Now, what about this version? Oops, I'm a terrible player. That's got a little more energy. It wants to go. Right? Let's see if I can go to a more of a piano. Where's the piano? Ah, here we go. It wants to keep going, right? Right? So that's a little lesson with silence. Now, what I did there is I used a cadence, a half cadence. I ended on a note that wants to resolve, very specifically, a dominant seventh, a G dominant seventh. Wants to go to C major. Now, if you want to learn more about reasons why, look up cadences, all right? Look up Tabletop Composer, cadences. I have so many videos that all break it down really well. But that's not what you were asking about. You were asking about the mix. Which is a wonderful question, because I need to talk about mixing a lot more on this channel, all right? Your mix sounded decent, all right? There was nothing glaringly terrible about it, all right? So first off, pat yourself on the back, you got good ears, all right? Don't worry about it. Now, what I'm going to share is information on how to improve that mix, if you so desire. It's very well done. Again, it's a beautiful piece of music, all right? So, in the basics of mixing, this is Mixing 101. So, basics, all right? I want to emphasize this is basics because there is so much that you can do with mixing. In mixing, there is a hierarchy. There is some argument about the order that hierarchy goes in, but generally speaking, it goes balance, then panning, then reverb, then EQ. For a beginner, this is the hierarchy. In fact, I'm going to put a number on this, not just dots. Numbers, or letters, I suppose. Letters to show that there is a hierarchy. Balance is number 1. All right? How loud different tracks sound compared to each other. All right? There are a lot of different ways you can do this. You can use reference tracks. You can say like, oh, this is a piece of music written with the same basic kind of instrumentation I want. I'm going to listen to this track. Okay, now compare it to mine. Ooh, my strings are a little loud. I'm going to bring that volume down a little bit. That's one way to do it. All right? Personally, that never worked well for me. Sometimes you can go with your gut instinct. If you have much better ears than I do, you can go, I don't like the way this sounds. I'm going to bring the strings down a little bit. I'm going to bring the flutes up a little bit. You're like, that sounds better. Cool. If you are gifted and talented, which I am not, that can work for you. Another strategy, and one that I have shared a couple times, is one that I really like, called the pink noise method. You can actually see I've got my pink noise loaded down here for these samples. So over here, I've got, let's listen to this first. This is what we're listening to. So I've got strings. I have a men's choir. And I have a solo child singer. Now, if I just played all of these out of the box, they'd sound decent, but a little out of whack. So number one, mixing this, is balance. How do I do this? Strings. I soloed the strings. And I soloed the pink noise. Warning, if you got headphones, lower the volume down. This is going to be very unpleasant. So I'm going to warn you. 3, 2, 1. Boom, you were warned. Pink noise is a type of static where all the frequencies are approximately equal. So the goal is, when you've got your pink noise, you're going to compare the strings to it. And you'll use a fader or whatever you'd like. So let's start here. Just gonna listen to it. And you're just gonna raise it until you can just barely hear them. Until you just barely hear the strings playing louder than the pink static. All right? I had it about there when we started, though, with the mix. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna mute your strings. You can go to the choir. You do the same thing. And you just do the same thing until, again, adjusting the fader or using gain, whatever strategy you want to like manipulate the volume a little bit, until eventually you again hear the voices just a little louder than the pink noise. It's about the same amount is what you're going to. You're trying to hear the strings and the men's choir by the same amount. Then you do the same with the solo boy singer. You can see this one actually had to be reduced quite a bit, about 8 decibels, because this library was much louder than the others. And then eventually, using that, you have a nice balance. And they all sound nice together. So that's number one. That's the strategy I use. Now, it's not a perfect strategy. This is a good way. I'd say that the pink noise method is a method for getting you started. Now, if you want pink noise, just Google pink noise. Boom. 10 hours of pink noise. Just steal that from YouTube. You don't need all 10 hours, but take a couple minutes. All right? That's a great way to get a starting balance. Then, from there, once everything's balanced, then you can start going through and make little tweaks here and there. All right? Panning is number 2. This is the one where I think your mix could benefit the best from, my friend. All right? Your panning, everything was pretty mono. You may have seen at the beginning, I was going like a little bit like that. I was comparing like, how do these instruments sound? Oh my goodness, my hair is... What the... Okay, no. All right, no need to be vain. Whatever. Y'all aren't here for my beautiful face anyway. You're here for my knowledge and my input. Anywho, so, panning. The joys of ADHD. All right, I'm getting distracted by my neighbor who's out back doing yard work. I'm distracted by my own face on the stream and seeing my hair fall. I'm distracted by the drink. I'm distracted by all kinds of stuff. Recompose. Panning. I got hair in my mouth. I'm sorry, Robbie. I feel like I'm failing you. All right, I gotta focus. There we go. Focus. All right, Robbie. Panning. All right, panning. Giving everywhere its own little space on stage. So here I kind of cheated. These are all samples for reels, all right? All right, so these are all real samples from like a series I'm doing where I'm like showing different chords. And so it doesn't need to be super high quality. Just needs to kind of show off different moods and whatnot. So I'm cheating a little bit by having my strings all play in a single patch. But ideally, you would set out, because if you look at a orchestral seating chart, you see every instrument has its own situation. Violin 1 is pretty far to the left. Violin 2, a little, not as far. Violas, about the same as like violin 2 on the second, then cello and basses. Now you can use, if your libraries are not panned, you can usually use the panner inside the library itself. That's usually like the best bet. Especially, it's like bang for your buck. Sometimes, if you really want to invest, you can get something like 2C precedence, which allows you to really configure how far back, how far to the right, all kinds of stuff. So like if I pan really far and to the left, and we listen to this real quick, and you've got headphones, is how you're gonna hear this the most. Now we'll listen to the subtle impact of keeping it that far left, but bringing it much closer. Feels a little closer. You can do the opposite now. And you can just get really specific about where on the stage you want this library to be sitting. So panning does a couple different things. It's gonna help give you more of a 3D structure to your music. And it's also gonna help avoid something called frequency masking, where similar frequencies, you'll see, like, I'll pull it up. You can see all these frequencies that exist within this sound. And when you have frequencies, like right here, where we had a nice spike, and you have one that's really low, they can mush each other. They can mess each other up a little bit. They have, some can get boosted, some can get cut down. And so panning helps separate them slightly and keep them from causing issues. So again, it helps add a little more clarity. Then after panning, reverb. So give each spot, instrument, its own space on stage. Reverb is how the impact of a room, all right, on a sound. So here we have our, let's do our young child singer, all right? Because the young child has some, we can add some more. So let's hear the difference. All it does is it mimics the impact of a room. So like if we take a small room, Studio Alpha, add like 30% wet, meaning like only 30% of the signal is going to sound like it's in that room, is having reverb. We hear how it impacts it. Very subtle. Most rooms are quite subtle. But what happens if we put it in a cathedral? Basilica of Santo Spiri. And we'll do the same, 30%. But this much larger room has a very different impact on the sound. See? A little bit of an echo, a little more space, it survives a little bit longer. So the point of reverb and using reverb in your mix, wrong one, is, the point of reverb is to make sure each library / instrument sounds like it was recorded in the same room. All right? If you've got a bunch of different reverbs, they're all going to sound like they were recorded in different rooms. It's going to sound less clear. Then EQ, and don't worry, I'm going to give you a resource for all of this, a free resource to help you explain this a little more. EQ, number 4, least important, and yet for whatever reason, beginners seem obsessed with it. EQ helps clean your frequencies. All right, this is super important to understand that you don't need a lot of it. Not super important as in like, don't you dare forget to EQ. Super important as in, if you overdo it, you're gonna kill your sound, and I'll explain why. All right, so first, let's see how much room tone we have. So you see this down here. This little low rumble is called room tone because this is a recording. There's gonna be a little bit of sound from the room. Now, a little bit of sound is fine. This is not an issue. Some libraries have more, some have less. The real issue is if you've got 75 different tracks and they all have a bit of room tone, that stacks up. All right, so what you can do, and the simplest, most easy approach to EQ, because there's a lot of different things EQ can do, is to just apply a little bit of a high pass filter. Not much, very subtle, that allows all the higher frequencies to pass through, but now suddenly that rumble is not allowed through. Seesaw a little bit. Now if we turn this off, it's gonna come back. Turn it back on, it's gone. Cool, right? Now here's the danger. Watch what happens if I add too much. See, now it sounds all weird. Even if we were not that dramatic, if we just apply like halfway, listen how it impacts it. It's gonna sound like it's coming through a cheap speaker. If we keep going. A little bit of an EQ. Even messing it up, like adding something. Like here, just adding a weird spike can change it quite a bit. Let's move this over a bit. You can hear it adds a little bit of that distortion a little bit. So the idea is EQ is meant to be corrective in most cases. A little bit goes a long way, and if you don't have a specific reason to be using it, don't use it at all. All right, you're gonna mess up your music. Now, I understand that was very rushed. If you want to learn more, check out my blogs. I bet you didn't know I had blog posts, did you? A lot of people don't. Oh, want to see something cool? I think it's cool at least. Look up emotions and chords. Boom, top result is your boy. Google sees me as the expert of chords and emotion, which I love. All right. Anywho, back to the blog. This one right here, mastering digital spaces for realistic music, include essential mic positioning. Covers information on mic positions, which we didn't talk about, but it covers panning, including recommendations. It covers reverb, including how reverb works, what it is, how to build your own reverb, and how to apply reverb and all that kind of stuff. All right, so reverb and panning, it's going to help. I showed you guys the pink noise method for balance. Between those three, you're pretty well set. And now I'm realizing I exited out of the notes. Here we go. I exited out of that. Did I lose you guys? Okay, so I did not exit out of you. So, all to say, beautiful piece, Robbie. Well done. Thank you for submitting music for the live stream for the first time. That's awesome. And if you wanted help with balancing with a mix, here's how I would do it. Balance is number 1. If you only do one thing, get balance. Panning is number 2. If you only do 2 things, balance and panning, get those figured out, master those. If you do 3, then throw in reverb, it's going to help. And then at the very bottom of that is EQ. Again, this is basics. All right, so if you are a master engineer and you just hate something I said, don't at me. This is basics. It's about to be like just getting you started. All right, wonderful job, Robbie. Beautiful music. Thank you for submitting. Let's move on to the next one, shall we? Going to make this. There we go. Mama made me poet. All right, Mama, let's do this. Requests. I just want to check the mixing aspect and the vibe of the song. Oh, awesome. So we're just going to do a vibe check, give a cool listen. This will be simple. And then I just went through that whole thing on mixing. So hopefully this is helpful to you as well, Mama Maid. Let's do this.
मुराद की मैं लफ्ज़ से छू तारे मेरे सुनते नहीं सुराग दूँ मैं इश्क़ी का वो मिलता कागज़ खुलते ही हंसों के यादें मिलती नहीं वो चेहरा मेरा भूलते नहीं हूबहू तो चाहिए ना वो खूब कोई ढूंढती थी मुराद की मैं लफ्ज़ से छू तारे मेरे सुनते नहीं सुराग दूँ मैं इश्क़ी का वो मिलता कागज़ खुल के ही कहाँ मैं कहाँ तू जहाँ मैं वहीं तू वहीं तू वहीं तू वहीं तू वहीं रात की मैं लत से छू तारे मेरे सुनते नहीं सुराग दूँ मैं इश्क़ी का वो मिलता कागज़ खुल के ही
कहाँ मैं कहाँ तू उस जहाँ से थोड़ी दूर जहाँ मैं वहाँ तू उस तरह से थोड़ा झूठ कह सकूँ तो शुक्र है पढ़ना मेरे बस का नहीं स्कूल में जाना वजह तू अब वजहों से गुजर के जब बात आई कहने की तो दिल भी मुकर गए अब खुद को देख के हंसता हूँ निगाहें तेरी उतर के अब खुद को देख के हंसता हूँ क्यों रातें ज़ाया करता था मैं नाखूनों को कुतर के कि कल मैं तुझको कह दूंगा कल वो कभी आया नहीं ये कल भी कितना महंगा है मैं कल की कीमत पाया नहीं फिर जाके उसने बदला स्कूल वो वापस आया नहीं फिर ओ जाने जा किरदार मुझसे निकता नहीं किरदार तू ज़माने का बखूब है किरदार तू ज़माने का बखूब है किरदार तू ज़माने का बखूब है
कहाँ गए वो दिन वो रात तू मुझे बता कहाँ गए वो दिन वो रात ये बता तू दिल हटा तेरा बता दे कि मैं बस छू तारे मेरे सुनते नहीं सुराग दूँ इश्क का वो मिलता कागज खुल के ही
चला मैं चली तू और रास्ते हैं अलग अलग जमी तू कहे मुझे फलक फलक तू मिल भी जाए अगर मिला ना पाऊं नजर
चला मैं चले तू जहाँ मैं वहीं तू
मैं थोड़ा अपनी और थोड़ा सा हूँ तेरी तरफ तेरी जमी मेरा गांव तेरी गली मेरा घर तेरी कमी कभी हो तेरी कमी मेरा सवर कभी तू भी मुझे मिल कभी तू भी सहे गम कभी तू भी करे इश्क और उसकी करे कदर फिर ना हाल मेरा ठीक और तू लेती मेरी खबर कभी लम्हे साथ जिए वही लम्हे दिए बदल वही लम्हे दिए
रात की मैं से छू तारे मेरे सुनते नहीं सुराग दूँ इश्क का वो मिलता कागज खुल के ही खुशों के यादें धुलती नहीं वो चेहरा मेरा भूलती नहीं वो तो चाहिए ना वो को ही ढूंढती थी
Dude, I got no idea what you were singing about, but that was beautiful. Those vibes were immaculate. That was well done. Awesome. All right, and without a specific request, I don't have much to offer. That's the tricky part about listening to things just once and having to provide feedback. That's why I ask for specific things, and it gives me something to focus on. I already covered the basics of mixing, but it sounds like you're well past that. Vibe was immaculate. You asked about that. There seems like there's some people in the comments who are much more experienced with mixing and sound production than I am. I am much more of a kind of like a traditional composer. So I'm going to read what they are saying. All right, so 23 says, this mix is freaking interesting. It sounds like it's on its side. The highs are going left instead of up, and the lows are on the right instead of the bottom. So extreme. That is awesome. And Schloos says, well, pan drums are such ear candy. And yeah, this is a good piece. People seem to enjoy it. Well done. I wish I had more specific feedback to offer, but this is a good, polished piece. All the pieces so far have been amazing. This is well done. I don't have much to add here. But it's also outside of my wheelhouse. It's a very different style of music than I usually write. But well done, my friend. Awesome. Shall we move on? Lucher. I was wondering if I could get any tips on just the general orchestration of it all, as I am very new to orchestration. Your 101 videos are like the only knowledge I have. Awesome. Glad they're helpful. So let's listen to this, shall we? So general orchestration tips. We've already talked about the 3 pillars of solid orchestration, so I won't recover those, but let's see what we can come up with, shall we? This is much more up my wheelhouse. Oh, this is giving Ghibli vibes. I think this is like, you used the strategy for my first video to, haha, yeah. You are definitely channeling Joe Hisaishi here. Was beautiful. Well done, my friend. So you definitely captured the Ghibli vibe. That was a couple things that really hit the Ghibli vibe. One, obviously, you've got the very nostalgic sounding harmonies, lots of sevenths, lots of ninths. You've got the beautiful chordal texture in the piano. But I really enjoyed your channeling of Joe Hisaishi's use of minimalism. The idea of short ideas. Bum-bum-bum-bum. And then repeating it over and over again in the piano and building new ideas all around it. It's very much, if you ever listen to his soundtrack for The Boy and the Heron, and most recently, Joe Hisaishi just scored a Hollywood film that I'm very excited about going to see. I don't think he's ever scored a Hollywood film before, to my knowledge. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, so very beautifully done. A couple things that you could work that could benefit you. All right? That we've talked about. First off, the 3 pillars. I would recommend watching that video. Watch this video. This will help a lot. Which, if you watch the 101 series, the advanced orchestration techniques, that'll help as well. That's the next logical step. Next, mixing. The big one that you could benefit from would be balance. All right? So try out that pink noise method I shared. That's going to help level this up quite a bit too. Now, a couple other things that I can provide. Some tips to bring a little more life to it. First off, I'm going to give you an approach to mapping arrangements. All right, a very simple approach. All right. Start with your structure. All right. 23 says that this music feels like it tells a specific story. I agree. This definitely feels like you have a specific story in mind. All right. What are your different? What is the order of the different scenes / sections of your music? So, are you telling a specific story? What are the scenes? What sections? What themes get used where, etc. Once you have your structure, map out the personality. This is very important. All right, so going earlier, that breakdown I had about the secrets to emotions and music that I shared. Oops. This is a fantastic way to start. All right, to use these 3 things. All right, when you're mapping it out. How does the valence, size, and energy of your music need to shift from section to section? All right, and then from there, map out your strategies. All right, what kinds of layers / techniques will you use to control your valence, size, and energy? All right, because there are a lot of moments here where you just use sustained chords. That's awesome. Then later on in the piece, you start exploring other textures. Texture is just a fancy word for the number and types of layers. So like melody plus chords plus bass line, that's one texture. melody plus ostinato, arpeggios, and bass line. That's another example of another texture. Just a different combination of different layers. So you can use those to your advantage to help tell your story by controlling valence, size, and energy. Once you've mapped that out, you can go through and just start creating your ideas, all right? Very simplified breakdown. A very simple approach. It works really, really well to have this map to figure out, all right, how does the personality change section to section of my music, and then how am I going to navigate that change in personality. Now, one last thing is the expressivity of your instruments. So you have a bass line. All right, and your bass line sounds pretty much like this. Let's see here. Let's up the... I was asked to increase the volume in my DAW. I'm just going to do this. It's a lazy way to do it. So let's say you have your bass line, and this is what you've got going on. That's nice, but it doesn't sound natural. This is very unnatural for stringed instruments. And what makes it unnatural? It's the lack of expression. So like, this sounds more natural. So this is one way. This is a much more natural way. How there's just a shift. All right, so for example, listen to these strings. Listen and watch this little line of modulation data. Louder. Softer. Now let's listen to that same exact thing, but this time without any change. Even more so, let's get rid of the other data. Velocity. Oh, wait. Oh, all right. Is it? All right. So this. Oh, okay. I was lazy. I didn't actually change the velocity. So there we go. And again, listen to it with the data. So this comes back down to the idea of expressive. What makes music expressive? All right. Small shifts in dynamics, or we'll say volume, pitch, and timbre that the performers make, often subconsciously, without while performing. So this idea of making the strings sound, they get louder then come back down. It's like a sigh, a breathing. It feels like it's got breath to it. Breathe in, breathe out. All right? Versus just staying stable the entire time. Now, one of the powerful tools for this is called modulation. Continuous controller number 1. Now, I do have resources for this because I'm running out of time. I have to wrap this up by like 4:30. So I unfortunately can't dive super deep into it. But that would be the next step for you. If you want to really bring an expressive kind of nature to this, check out a couple things for you. I'll give you a couple resources. Tabletop Composer. Obviously, go to my website. Check out the Academy page, if my computer will load it. Free classes. It sounds like you've already taken my 101 series. Next one is Fundamental Arranging Techniques, Orchestration 2, which is in YouTube, it's called Advanced Orchestration Techniques. I renamed it for my class. Take this course completely free. It'll get you started. If you want a good resource for for adding that nuance, that realistic performance, this book right here, The Guide to MIDI Mockups, is a good option. But all the information found in here is also found in my textbook, the Music Composition Textbook, which goes way more in depth. This is by far my most popular product I've made. It's got fantastic reviews, as you can see, 4.5 reviews across 10 reviews. You can find it on Amazon for physical copies. You can find 4-star review. Who gave me a 4-star review? That's new. All right. Anyway, thank you for the 4 stars. I'm glad you appreciated it mostly. It used to have a perfect 5-star review. But here we go. So you can find the table of contents here to see all the cool stuff you'll learn. And the final chapters do discuss mixing realistic mock-ups, And making sure that all of your instruments sound realistic and expressive. So you can find that, or if you don't, if you get strapped for cash, just look up Tabletop Composer. Realistic strings. I'm sure I've done stuff. See, yeah, live composing lesson 13, making string samples sound realistic. Tone up your music with realistic MIDI mockups. Writing for strings. I've got lots of stuff here. All right, check it out. Hoot out. That's not what. Sorry, I almost dropped a word there. Who's this guy? Breton Vivian. Breton. Why did Google call you table? And you know what? Not important. Not important. You're on my list, Breton. I'm sure you're a nice guy, but you're on my list now. All right. So I hope that was helpful, Lurcher. Beautiful piece. You captured the Studio Ghibli vibes beautifully. Well done, my friend. Let's see here. Any questions? Any comments? Oh, it's a constructive feedback. 23. I'm glad it's not my job to come up with constructive feedback. These pieces are practically perfect. Yes, that's why I always ask for specific requests. It makes my job easier. Vanessa, could you do a video about negative harmony and some other similar techniques for rearranging music? Of course. That sounds like a lot of fun. I do enjoy negative harmony. I've never done a video about it. I'm going to make a note about that. Negative harmony. I have done some videos on reharmonization because reharmonization is one of my favorite topics. You can go to YouTube Studio, or not YouTube Studio. Just go to YouTube, find my channel. Reharmonizing using the Lydian mode. How to use the mixed Lydian mode. Reharmonizing in Phrygian mode. Make your music more interesting using the Dorian mode. How to use sus chords. How to use tritone substitution. How to use augmented chords. How to use diminished chords. Basically, most of the videos I've done since April are good videos for how to reharmonize. Because I've been using mostly shorts. It's been a while since I've done a full-length format tutorial. And that's just out of practicality because of my busy schedule at the moment, but I will get back to it. All right, let's move along because I have got to wrap this up by 4:30. I've been taking too long with this. Let's see here. Shlu. Requests. Over the last week or so, I've been writing a piece for strings and piano. The trouble that I'm facing is kind of a weird one. Maybe it's just ear fatigue, but I don't know if the structure works. The piece is supposed to be around 4 to 5 minutes long. You will hear the first 2 minutes. Those 2 minutes can be split into 4 32-bar phrases. It's 180 BPM. First 33 seconds is the opening, teasing theme in the cello. Then the next about a half minute is establishing the main theme in violins and E minor, counter subject teased in violas. The next 30 or so seconds is focusing on the counter subject in G major, then counter subject in E minor, more chromatics. Then the next 30 seconds or so throw back to the first section onwards in solo piano modulation to the subdominant. I kind of feel like the calm and contrasting, a major B section that I have planned would come too early. The sections seem too brief and almost fleeting. I want to do more than with what I have. For example, expanding on the modulation section at the end, adding a 32-bar phrase there would make the structure opening +4 instead of opening +3 as it is now. I think this would work very well and give the listener more time to settle, but I need another set of ears for this one. All right, awesome. So yeah, basically you want to see if this sounds fully developed enough to move on. All right, I can help with that. Additional information, before I get to my submission, I want to say that the feedback you gave me last time about working with pink noise to balance the dynamics of my instruments really helped me out and worked perfectly, so thank you. It was part of the portfolio that got me accepted into my bachelor program in film scoring and production. Congratulations, my friend. That's awesome. Way to go. Wonderful. All right, awesome. Glad I could help. That's really cool. Let's listen, shall we? All right, let's see. Is this a developed enough piece to move on to a contrasting B section? Let's find out. I believe, Shlu, you're the one that said that this might be a soft. If it's too soft... Huh. SD Sheridan, my PC's on fire. This is one that you shared from a previous one, but this is not Shlu. All right, give me a second, y'all. Shlu said... There's a new one. Let's bring this over here. Shlu. Here we go. Yep, here it is. into theme 1. Oh, I like this. Very well done. I like this. This is a very fun piece. It's got a bit of a bouncy energy, especially that second theme. So right now, basically what you're saying is you've got an intro, you have an A section, then you have a B section, and then you have back to the A section again. You're wondering, all right, are my ideas fully developed enough to actually move on? So let's visualize this down here. So you go ABA. Is that enough? I think so. Yeah, I think it's good. That's fine. If you really wanted to secure it, if you really wanted to make sure that there was strength behind the idea, I would have had a repeat right there. I would take your ABA, which is a little ternary right now, just add another one. Initial statement. Repeat it immediately. Just establish this is important. You need to remember this. And strengthen it. Give it, maybe give the melody across octaves. Add a French horn or a really strong piano, whatever. Do something to make the melody really bring it home. Then add contrast. Then come back to the original idea one last time and move on. That's what I would do. But this is fine. This is good. Yeah. And your idea of adding another 32 bar phrase, that could work too. That's fine too. Let's see, let me read through this. I kind of feel like the common contrasting B major section that I had planned would come too early. I don't think so. I think it'd be fine. Sections seem too brief and almost fleeting. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I want to do more with what I have. For example, expanding on the modulation section at the end. If that's what you want, then do it. Adding another 32 bar phrase there would make the structure opening +4 instead of opening +3 as it is now. I think this would work very well and give the listener more time to settle, but I think I need another ear for those. All right, this is the big one right here. Bold. Boom, 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 boom. I think this could work very well and give the listener more time to settle, but I need another set of ears for this one. Why? Nope. You have a good idea. Why are you doubting yourself? All right? So many composers out there seem to think that they need permission to do stuff. They need someone else to validate their ideas. Forget that. It's your idea. Go for it. Trust yourself. All right? Stop looking for permission. All right? If you keep looking for permission, then you're never going to grow as a composer. All right? Embrace the possibility of mistakes. All right? Mistakes aren't inherently terrible. They help you grow at the very worst, and they help become innovative at the very best. There are lots of people who argue about Hector Berlioz and the Symphonie Fantastique, one of the most influential pieces from the Romantic era. They argue about whether or not he knew what he was doing with the sonata form. Did he write a bad sonata form structure because he didn't know what sonata form was? There's a lot of evidence that suggests that. Or was he being masterfully deliberate by ignoring conventions and going against the will, or going against the tide in service of his art? That's a possibility. A little less likely. It's probably a combination of both, honestly. But the idea is his mistake ended up being innovative because the music was good nonetheless. And why was the music still good? Because he thought it was a good idea, so he did it. All right? You think you've got a good idea? You're awesome. Go for it. All right? Stop asking for permission. If you think it's good, go for it. Listen to it. And if you don't like it, you can always go back and change it. There is a rich history of composers writing music and then 20, 30 years down the line going, I don't really like the way that ends anymore. I'm going to change the ending. That's fine. Do it. It's your music. Go for it. If you like this idea, go for it. If you like my idea, go for it. Whatever you want. All right? I think it's a beautiful piece. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think it's well established enough. If you really wanted to establish it, like I said, I would add that second A section. But other than that, it's good. It's good. You've got a good piece here. Got some good bones. And I am excited to hear the full piece. When you finish the full piece, send it to me, Shlu. I want to hear the full thing. All right? Very fun piece. Well done, my friend. Oh, the whole 2 minutes are the A section. Awesome, but okay, so awesome. So whatever, but you hear me. Okay, so awesome. So I'm reading the rest of your comments, though. That's good. That's good. That's good. So it sounds like we're still helpful information. Awesome. Glad to be helpful, Lurcher. Wonderful. Shlu, I actually had the idea to turn this into sonata form. I was thinking about that. I think sonata form would work very well with this. And thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing it when it's done. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you for agreeing. We have one last piece, my friends. Adam Photo. I apologize, Adam Photo. I'm sure your last name is not pronounced Photo, but at least I didn't call you Fautux. That sounds cooler. I'm going to call you Adam Fautux. All right, Fautux, let's do it. Recently, I've been trying to improve at creating interesting, satisfying textures and transitions between textures, but this piece still feels a little boring to me. Any tips would be appreciated, and thanks again. My pleasure. This time I'm submitting a piece that is meant to reflect the evolving feeling of grief or lament. Ooh, you are in my wheelhouse, my friend. For whatever reason, professionally, I have gotten pigeonholed as the sad composer. All right? It's actually so annoying because like almost all of my projects, I have to write these really sad pieces of music, which means I have to sit with some really sad emotions and some really sad stories. And the last project I worked on, I took the job because they're like, all right, we want you to write this super sad piece about loneliness and just like the despair involved with being lonely chronically in your life. I'm like, okay. They're like, we heard this song we heard all the music you wrote for this musical about like suicidality and grief, survivor's guilt and all that stuff. We thought it was breathtakingly painful. We love it. We want that style for this one. I'm like, okay, cool. I kind of just did that kind of stuff. Not sure if I want to do it again. They're like, and if you do it, we'll let you do this rom-com as well. I was like, do it. All right. Hell yeah. Let's try something new. Let's do a rom-com. I want to do a rom-com. It's fun. Sounds fun. Sounds a lot happier than a sad story. And so I did it. I wrote the sad music, and then they listened to it. They're like, oh, we love this. This is beautiful. In fact, it's making us rethink the rom-com. I was like, what? And then they ended up rewriting the rom-com to be another sad story, all about people who fall out of love. I was like, oh, come on. Anywho, I'll have to say, this is the kind of music I end up writing a lot of for whatever reason, because I'm a genuinely happy person. And then people got me doing all this sad stuff. Anywho, this piece is basically serving to reprise a motif, but is otherwise through composed. Through composed. Fancy term there, meaning that no sections repeat. All right? So it's based on a motif, but every new verse, it's like having one new verse, then a new verse with a different melody, then a new melody. So through composed is basically the idea of A, B, C, D. All right? One melody, then a new melody, then a new melody, then another new melody. All right, this is a very old technique, very time-honored. Let's listen to it. beautiful contrast from the large size to this much more intimate. Beautiful. All right. Let's see what we can do, my friend. All right, so I need tips. So the reason I try, but it still feels a little boring to me. All right. Feels a little boring. I can see why you'd say that. I don't mean that as a dig. This is a beautiful piece of music, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Beautiful piece of music. You should be very proud of it. And I'm not saying it's boring. I'm saying I understand why you would think it is boring. That's usually because of one big thing. And this is a common mistake many, many beginners make. All right? Your foreground doesn't change registers. Or if it does here and there, but it doesn't happen a lot. That tends to be a big issue in feeling static. All right, so two things that you did do. Your texture doesn't change much. And your foreground doesn't move around registers all that much. All right, let's explain these two statements. Because it's a beautiful piece, beautiful arrangement, beautiful use of instrumentations and colors and beautiful ideas. Wonderful, but you say it sounds boring. I wouldn't say it's boring, but I can understand why you would think it feels boring. It's because of these two things. All right? Texture equals the number and types of layers being used. The most dramatic shift was around right here. Comes back down. And even here, the texture doesn't change that much. The size changes, but the texture doesn't. The number and types of layers being used. You use throughout a lot of this melody and chords. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. You can do that as much as you want. But this is one way to make some change. Is section by section change the types of layers. For example, melody as a solo could be one idea. Melody plus bass line plus arpeggio is another idea. You could do chords plus arpeggio as like a transition. You could do melody plus chords plus bass line. You could do melody plus counter melody plus bass line. See that what I'm doing? Like, there's all different ways you can manipulate how these are useful. And again, all of this going back to that idea I said about my approach to arrangements. Texture is a huge one. Change the color. How does the personality need to shift from this section? So you're saying this section is really big. I need to make super small and more intimate. Cool. How can you use your texture to accomplish that? You can go from lots of layers, lots of registers, to just a smaller. You did smaller instrumentation, smaller registers. That's wonderful. But you could also dramatically change the texture to just melody and a bass line, for example, would be super intimate. Just melody and an arpeggio can be super intimate. So that's one way. Be a little more dramatic with your texture. If you ever listen to a lot of John Williams does this masterfully. John Williams will take a very simple idea and get a ton of mileage from it by dramatically changing the types of textures he uses. So that's one. Now another one, because you did this one pretty well. All right, you changed textures around about. That was very well done. It could have been done a little more dramatically at times, but other than that, it was well done. The bigger one was your foreground doesn't change registers so much. Again, using John Williams as an example. For the most part, your melody stays around here. The melody itself changes. The instruments playing the melody changes, but it stays around the same area, around the high to mid register. Explore it. Sometimes it's a high mid register. The next section, boom, you're several octaves lower playing the melody. Then boom, you're a couple octaves higher back to the middle. You're up super higher, but down. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. But when your melody just stays around the upper middle register, in the flutes, in the violins, in the high register French horn, it's all around the same octave or two. That can be one reason why you feel like it is stagnant. It's because that melody doesn't go anywhere exciting. You can change the melody, but moving it around physically across different octaves and having that strong contrast can be very useful for breathing extra life to your ideas. And again, that's something Hans Zimmer does. That's something John Williams does. John Powell, Shostakovich, Beethoven, Berlioz, all the great composers use it, take advantage of the melodies up here. Now it's down there. Now it's here. You move it all over the place. Have fun with it. All right. Now again, this is a beautiful piece. I don't think it's boring, but I could see why you might think it is, because there are times, especially you've listened to it so many times, there are two things. These two can breathe so much life to it, especially when you've listened to a piece of music many, many times, as we all listen to our own music ridiculously frequently. It's because we are writing it. We listen to it as we write it. That's how I would improve it. So welcome, wonderful job. I don't know why I'm saying welcome. I'm tired. Wonderful job, Adam Fautux. I apologize for butchering the name of your. That I do like the way that Fautux. I know that's not how it's pronounced, but I like it. All right. Yes, Pierre. I agree with Pierre. I don't think it sounds boring at all. I like how stable it sounds. 23 is also saying it's not boring. 23 says this is awesome. It fits the style of music I think belongs on this channel for sure. Love it. See, people love it. 23, that's funny. I think of your music as bouncy and romantic. See, yes, going back to that comment about it. Yes, my natural voice as a composer, the kind of music I write most frequently, especially when you like listen to me write stuff on the fly, just rapidly for examples, I tend to have a romantic feel. I tend to have a little bit of a bouncy feel. I tend to have a bit of a nostalgic feel. But for whatever reason, I also tend to go a little more heroic. I never default to super sad stuff. And yet that's what I've gotten pigeonholed as a composer. That's what people hire me for over and over again. It's just the super sad stuff. I don't know why. But this brings us to the end of another wonderful stream, my friends. Thank you so very much to everyone for courageously sharing your music. Beautiful submissions as usual. I hope you all really enjoyed the feedback. I hope it's helpful. I hope it helps you grow. Again, as a reminder, if you'd like to help support this channel, please consider becoming a member. Please support on Patreon. And if you'd like to get some really cool stuff, check out the book on the bookshop. I've got lots of cool stuff here, including a free book, The Little Passion Project, The Composer's Roadmap, all about how to teach yourself how to compose. I have private lessons. And again, if you want to learn more about that model of emotions and music that we covered early in the live stream, that is so incredibly powerful and useful, I have a class. It comes with 3 private lessons. Check it out. That brings us to the end of a stream, my friends. All right, thank you very much. I have to head out. I'm running late. But thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll do this. The next one, Halloween, October 31st is the next live stream feedback. Maybe I'll dress up in a costume for it. All right? Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.